Hello and welcome to today's Scriptcase webinar. Today we will be taking a look at how we can work with XML data within Scriptcase by creating a few applications which can work with XML files as well as XML code. During which we will be using a MySQL database where we have some very basic fields which we will cover during this session. We will also be using the following PHP functions within our code. So we have first of all XML reader, we have simple XML load string and simple XML load file. To learn more about either of these, remember that Google is your friend and there is a great deal of information available on XML, and this content is available within the php.net manual. So we will also be using some Scriptcase macros to simplify and speed up our development process. So the manual we can access within Scriptcase. We can go to help within the top menu, web help, and from there we can access and read the online version of the manual. We can download a complete PDF or in zip format. When reading, you have macros down here in the left, and there we have all of the macros available. So for this webinar, we will be using sc alert, sc begin trans, sc exec sql, sc commit trans, as well as rollback trans, which will be the main macros we will be using within this webinar. So let's start by having a look at the exciting stuff we will be doing or creating within this webinar. So we will be creating this grid application where you can see we have a load of names here. We have a custom header and we have some buttons up here where we can first of all import an XML file. So from here we can upload a file. We just simply drag and drop a file into this area here, which will then display a file or location path, which is then presented on completion. And we also have the option to delete the contents of the file. So now what I have also is a basic XML file. So I drag that here into view. And we have here the root and a client's data. So we have here defined the ID, the name, the address, as well as telephone number, email address, and then 2 extra clients. We have 3 clients in total. Okay, so I simply drag and drop this file. And from there, then I can click the process file and it indicates how many entries have been processed. Okay, so then from there, if I go back, the entries will then be added here. Of course, I've used this quite a lot already, so you can see that it already has some names here. But for that, we've added the button here to delete records. So we can simply click the button and it will delete all records within the grid. And we can go for the process again and actually see the few entries that have been added within the database. So next up is then also the test XML string. So we will be creating this also. And again, if I take the notepad, which I had open just now, so we can copy and paste that into here and process the string, and it will tell us how many entries have been processed, meaning that the XML data is correct, or the XML coding is correct. Okay, so let's then go ahead and start creating this project. So again, we're going to create the grid as well as the 2 applications. We're also going to create a blank application, which is actually going to do all the processing. We will add the buttons into our grid and put it all together and pretty much make it look like it is now. Okay, so now within Scriptcase, we will start by creating a new project. I will just create a blank project and I'm just going to call this XML because I already have one called XML_webinar. So if I just go ahead with that, I will use a MySQL database, and here I will list my databases, and here I already have the XML webinar tables available, and we can test the connection and go next, and go next again, and I'll select the SC9 Midnight as the default theme and remove the sweet blue and click create again. Okay, so we can now start creating our new applications, but before we do that, let's have a quick look at our database. So if I select here the database builder, we can then access the MySQL database and check out our single table, which is called clients. And here we have the client ID field, client name field, client address, client teller, and client email to store our XML data. We have a very simple table that we are using, and the first application we will then create will then be first of all a control application. So I will call this control underscore XML underscore string, which will then perform our test string. Okay, so now here what we're going to do then is we are going to create first of all our fields. So we select here on the left hand side our fields, a new field, and here we want to create one field, it's enough, and I will just call that XML and click create. Okay, so now we have our XML field, which is a simple text field. So I'm going to change that to a multi-lines text, and then we can add some data here. So I will add here, enter your XML code to test it. And below that, as you saw, we had a watermark there. So here I will add, paste your XML code here and see if it works. So the amount of characters, I will change this to 80 and add 32 lines. So this will give us a nice big box. So if I go ahead and run that now, we then have our form already, and we can change how this looks again. We had the buttons around and we had a custom header. So let's go ahead and apply those also. So first of all, for the header, we want to access here our layout and header and footer. And then what we want to use is some font or some icons. So for this one, we had a Flask. So I already have here a Flask search for and font or some icons. So I'll just copy that code, place it here within my title. I'm going to go ahead and edit the hyphens out. And then we're just going to copy that down here also. Remove the date. We only want to display the title. And then we can say, call this XML test. XML test again. And now we'll save that. And then we can now adjust the toolbar. So first of all, I want to place the OK on the right and the exit over to the left. I also want to change the titles of these. So I will change exit to cancel and OK to process/test code. Okay, and if I run that, we'll now see some differences with the layout. Okay, so we have our buttons and our title. Now let's place our box here into the center. And to do that, what we will do is access here the layout blocks. And here I will place the label position above, and then we can run that again. Okay, so now that our first form is ready, let's go ahead and add some code so that it actually does something. So let's return back into Scriptcase, and we will start with events and then the onValidateSuccess event. Now here I'm going to add one line, which is process XML, which is going to be calling a method, which we are now also going to add. So we then access programming. Let's zoom in a little more. Programming, PHP methods, and here we will now create a new method, which we will then call process XML. Click create, and we can now start creating or coding a PHP method or a script, which is then going to process our code. So let's start off with data XML equals the field XML. And what we will want to add is some validation, but we will worry about that a little later. So then let's go if brackets and open close brackets, else, and open close brackets again. So let's organize this a little. Okay, so now we have the start of an if else statement. Let's go then if clients equals simple XML underscore load underscore string, and here then within brackets we want to include here our variable data XML, And the first thing we will do then is, if it doesn't exist, then we will display an alert. So SC alert. And here then we will add some basic text saying the upload failed. Okay, and then else, if it does exist, then we want to process it. So what we want to do then here is we want to, first of all, SC begin trans. So we will begin a transaction to the database, and then we want to, first of all, test the data that we've got here. So let's first of all echo, and we add then name, and name space full stop client name, and again here we want a break, and then we need to finish that line. So let's close this, name, echo name, and let's just replicate that a few times here. So we have name, address, telephone, email. Telephone and also email. So let's copy those. Email. This is then telephone and address. Okay, so then from there we can, let's first of all, we can comment that out. So we just want to echo it for now. Let's go ahead and run that. Okay, so now if we now paste some code in here, and we have our field is not allowing more characters, so let's go ahead and edit that. Here the field XML, because it's a created field within the control form, we have a maximum of 20 characters by default. So let's just increase that, run it again, and we can then add more content in here. Let's process that. Okay, undefined variable client we have. Let's come back here into our process XML. Okay, and then what we want to do before actually running this is encapsulate this within a for each. So for each clients as client. And then here we can place our brackets again. And then we basically looping the client names. Okay, so now if we go ahead and run this, let's see what our outcome is. Okay, so we paste here our code and process the test. We can then see the outcome being echoed within our form. Okay, so now let's then go ahead and change this. So instead of actually just displaying it within our page, we're going to actually create this transaction that we had started here and insert that into our database. So if I go ahead and comment these here out, these echoes, and then here we're going to then define our variables. And let me just copy this here, client, and then we need to define then here again, name equals client. And then we can just close that. And again, what I would do is just copy and paste that a few times. Name and address, phone, and email. And then here we want to change this to telephone, email, and address. Okay, so then we want to create our insert. So SQL underscore insert equals And then we need to create our insert string. So then we want to insert into clients. And here we want then our client name, the client address, the client telephone number, and also the client email. Okay, so once we've done that, then we need to add our values, which again in brackets. So we start with our name, and then we have our address field, and then we have the phone field, and then the final field, which is then the email field. Email. Okay, so that looks good. Let's then go sc_exec _SQL. And again, here we then want to define our SQL statement, SQL_insert. Okay. So now if we run that, it should now insert into our database. But what we want to do is actually add some validation to this also, so we can actually see those entries happen. So now let's add some validation here. And here if, and we're going to say control equals true, then we're going to do this, which is sc commit trans. So we secure our transaction, the previous transactions, and they are all added into the database. And sc alert, where we then alert the end user of the new entries. So here we will say total entries and equals, here then we want to go dot clients and count, and we can then close that XML file processed. Okay, so now if this doesn't though, then we want else. We want to then roll back our transactions. So we go sc rollback _trans, and again we're using the Scriptcase macro, and that will then roll back our transactions. Okay, and here the sc commit, as I mentioned previously, they're all available within the sc help file, so do look them up. They are very valuable and can save you a great deal of time. Okay, so it's not going exactly where I want it to. Let's leave it like so. And then we still need to actually provide our control here. So at the top here under our data XML, let's define here our control statement, and here we will say it is false on start, and then here if executed, then the control will equal true. Okay, validation. Okay, so now let's go ahead and run that and see if it's going to give us any errors. So now then within our form, we no longer have the echo there. So let's again grab our XML code, copy that and paste that here and process it. And we have an undefined variable address, so we double check that, but it seems like it did try to process there. So let's come back here. We have the variable incorrect, so it should be capital A address, phone, email. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that once more. And then this time process that. Beautiful. So no more errors. Prost, that's beautiful. So then let's go ahead and continue then with our actual insert form, which we can then link all of them to the grid. So returning back into Scriptcase, this one is ready. So let's then go ahead and create a new application. And this time we will create a control again. And this time I'll call it control_XML and click create. Okay, so within this form, we want some extra fields. So I'll go here, new fields, and we want this time 4 fields. So I'll define 4. So the first one is then the XML file. The second is then the location or the path. Then we have the deletion option. And then we also have the info. So let's just call that sub info. So we can add our labels here if we wanted to. I'm just going to go ahead and click create now. And then we can manage each field individually. So we have first of all the XML file. So here, the first thing I want to do is change the title and add a font awesome icon. So let me remove that. And then here, paste that. So we have here font awesome icon, which is increased in size using the FA 3 times. To know how to style font awesome icons, you have within font awesome icon the docs, and here on the right hand side you have a wealth of information on how you can customize the icons further yourself. Okay, so now that it's added here, I then also want to change this from a text to a document file name. So I have here document and file name, and that would change the options within the form. Now I also want to create a subfolder, and I want my uploaded files placed into a folder called XML, and we want to create that folder if it hasn't previously been created. Now we only want XML files uploaded, so within the extensions to allow here, I would also add XML. So then the uploaded file or field will not allow any other file types. So now I'll save that. The location field is just a simple text field. So here I will just change the title, file location, path, and click save. Okay, so now the del file. Here we had a checkbox. So we had a checkbox defined, and we also used a switch. So I will enable the switch and the checkbox field, and the lookup settings we have here is manual. Now notice here we have the label and value. We should have the odd value. So here what I'll do is I'll just say yes as 1. I'll insert that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change here the box from checkbox to radio, and then switch back again. And I now have the negative value, which is missing. So now I save that. And now if I go ahead and run my form, we're already halfway there. So, okay, we have the sub info to add, we have our delete button, and we have our title and so forth. So now let's go ahead then and adjust then next the subfield info, which here I was using a label. So here we have a label field defined. And again, I have some text here. So I'm just going to paste that in there, which says an upload XML file using HTML. Okay. And we've added then also a font awesome icon, which is then the file upload. Okay, so when I run that again, we will see that new field added. Now as a label and so on. Okay, so now we actually want to adjust the layout and change how this looks. So first of all, let's go to layout and blocks and create 2 new blocks. So I have a habit of calling my blocks block 0, block 1, block 2. So I'll go ahead with that, block 0 and block 1. Okay, so the top one, I'm going to change this one to above. I'm going to leave it as 1. And the next item, which would be beside. And then we're going to change the width of this to 60%. I'm going to select no, no, and no. The next one down, I'm going to change the width to 40% because this will then be beside the first one. And here, I will then also remove the title display. Okay, the label display, sorry. Okay, so now if I then access edit fields, I can now adjust where I want them all placed. So here we have our block 1, which is then for the block 0 for info, sorry, and then block 1 is then for the delete file. So we have the information to the right and the deletion to the bottom of the form. Okay, so we can already see that our form is much better laid out now, and we can of course make some further changes such as the buttons which you had previous. Let's go ahead and do that. Within our form, again, we access the toolbar, and here the OK button, I'll move it over here to the right and the exit to the left. And again, I will, for exit, I'll go cancel, and for OK, process file. Okay, so there we have that. What else do we have here? So we have the header also. So then let's access here the layout header footer, and we can change here, remove the date, and change the title to XML file import client list. Okay, so now if I save that and run, we now have our form in a much better order. Okay, so you may have noticed it within the other forms, what I'd also done, everything was tightly packed at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that here also. I'm going to come here to form settings. I'm going to go top 0, and the width, I'm going to apply a pixel width instead. So here I will say 800 pixels. 800 pixels, top 0, automatic. Okay, so now if we run, we'll see that the form will be already much better looking. Okay, so the next thing is here the file path. Let's increase that size of this field so that we can actually see the full path when it's added there. So let's go ahead with that, and we want to change here the del title to delete. And for the delete, there was also a help. I don't know if you had noticed when we started it, but there was also a help at the bottom of that. So I will go ahead and add that also. So at the bottom we have here help, and I've added a hint. So here I was saying selecting yes will delete all entries from the database. So something along those lines, and then we can run that again. And then here now we have a correct title, and we have a little help hint here so that people don't just click this not being unsure what it's actually going to delete. Okay, so now we have this. We still have nothing happening here with the process. So now let's go ahead and we can go ahead and do that. So here we have our events first of all, and we want then the onValidate event. So here first of all we want to apply an if statement. So here we go if, and we are going to say if the field del underscore file, which is the field we have here, del underscore file, and then if that equals 1, then we want to go ahead and run a Scriptcase macro sc exec underscore SQL, and then with that go ahead and quickly delete from clients. Okay, and that will then on click, if it is selected on valid, it would actually delete those options from our database. And then on validate success, here we then want to add first of all the path. So here we'll go add a variable lock equals this, and then we want to use the path ini. So ini, and then arrow path underscore doc dot. Now here, then we need to define our path XML / and then also our XML file, XML underscore file, with the brackets correct, XML underscore file, and then we can close that. Okay, so now we have then our field location, which then we want to display our path, which we have then received here. So now if we go location being our field equals our variable lock, which we have here. Okay, so now if I save that and then run, we have our form near complete. Okay, so we still have here the path field, so let's apply that here to location. And here we adjust this to say 60, run that again, and this field will be a little wider. Okay, so now we need to create our application which will perform the processing when we click this button. So at the moment, we have nothing else here. We can just remove that. And let's go ahead then and create a new application, which is now, or this time, a blank application. It's called blank_XML, and we'll call it import. Okay, so here within our blank application, we can basically copy and paste a load of the code we had already created within our other application. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. We had here, if I zoom out a little bit, you'll see that we had here our insert, which we just needed to add. And then here we had used the simple XML load file statement from PHP. Using this here as the class to load the XML file into an object so that we can process it within our code. Okay, and we have then also added a button here to close the modal window. So now here within the control XML, what we would do is we will call the blank XML on click. It will request the XML data, which will be the field. And then here, or the location, as in the location field, so it grabs the file. We have here our validation as previous. We have then a close modal option, and then we process our XML, and we insert it into our database. Okay, so this is very similar to what we had here already. So if we come here to our XML string, this is near identical to this. Okay, so now if we save this, and within our control XML, we'll come here to application links. We'll create a new link, and we have here an application link. We then go next. We select here the blank XML import, go next, and the field is then the location field, which we want to then to pass, confirm, and open in same window, or we can open in the modal window as we have the close option there. And I'll just add 600 pixels here, and both of these, as we have defined there, to display an alert. Okay, so let's have a quick look at that again. Here we are just displaying an alert, and we could of course code something else here, or as we have here prepared, a redirect. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this as it is. Let's generate first of all our blank XML. And then we can run our control XML here, which is our form. Now let's go ahead and add our XML file and click process. Okay, so everything's gone well. Our XML file has been processed. We can click close. Okay, and you see here our path is indicated here. Okay, so now if I select yes, it will actually delete those entries. We need to upload a new file, so let's upload a new file. We have yes, process file, and it deletes those entries instead. Okay, so now we want to tie all of this together with a grid application. So now let's go ahead, new application, and we create a grid application. And for that, we select our clients table. Can leave all the options as they are. Okay. And within the grid modules, I will deselect the detail, summary, and chart, as they will not be used for the grid. I will also change this to fixed label to no, and pagination to infinite scroll. Okay. And then click save. Of course, we could leave fixed label yes if we wanted to, but we had previously no, so I'm just going to leave it as no. And then we can then go ahead and first of all adjust our fields. If we wanted to hide the ID, we can just drag it above, change the field names and so on if we wanted to. Let's just go ahead and run it as it is and see the default form now. Okay, so then we see the entries that we've added, and then we now want to add first of all our buttons. So I'll add a new button, and I will call this one delete records, and that is a PHP button, and then click create. So in here we will just run the sc macro delete, and clicking that button will then delete all records. We can then use font awesome icon and add the trash icon, maybe change the styling to say Google, being nice and bright red, and of course update the title. Okay, we click save, and then the next button we have is then the XML button. So let's go import XML, and this time it is a link. So click create, and this then links to our, first of all update here, import XML file. Again, we can change here the styling. I'll use Facebook, and here I will search for an import icon, so that'll do. And then we can link this to our application, which is then the control XML. Click next and confirm. Okay, we can open that in the same window. Okay, so then the next button is then our string, and that is then also a link. So again, for this one, we can customize this again. Here, we'll add a flask. Change the styling to OK, being green, and test XML string. And then we will link that to our XML string application. And next, confirm that. And we now have our buttons. So let's go ahead to the toolbar and adjust the layout for these. So here, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and remove the quick search. It won't be used. Columns and sorting options, I'll move them up. The group by is not used. So again, I'll remove these. Search, dynamic search, not used. And there we have our buttons. So I'll move those over here to the right. And then to the right of that, let's just go ahead and add a separator. Okay, so now if I run, we now have our grid with our client details and our buttons here. Okay, so the last thing then really here to do is to change the header and footer. So let's go ahead and do that quickly. We have here in layout, header and footer, and here we'll just change our header footer layout. Display nothing. So again, I'm adding a font awesome icon and just some text. Now, if this field only supports so many characters, so if you do need more characters, then it's highly advisable to either code it within an event or to add application languages, and then you have an unlimited character that you can place not within this field, but by using a variable. So it's something that is worth doing, especially using with font awesome icons. Sometimes you can't fit your entire title within that field. Okay, so now then we have our grid ready. We have here the option to import XML. We have our form here. Let's go back. We have our test XML string. We can go back, and we also have the option to delete all records, which we have just done. So now let's go ahead and try the XML import again. Select that, process the file. It's been processed. We close that, go back, and our entries have been added into the database. Well, thank you very much for watching today. I hope that you've enjoyed it and learned something functional within Scriptcase. I hope to see you again next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.